And there she is, resplendent in the afternoon sun, the Mighty Dash at Toronto's Billy Bishop City Airport. We are on the final leg of our repositioning odyssey that's taken us all the way from San Francisco up the Pacific Northwest, through the Canadian Rockies, across the whole of Canada, across the Great Lakes. We are heading to Montreal, to Pierre Elliott Trudeau International Airport, CYUL, where in a matter of days, this Mighty Dash will resume its normal revenue service with flights to Boston and Albany, New York, and New York's Kennedy International Airport, and Buffalo, and points like that. Possibly Chicago. We'll see. But it's been quite a journey, and I'm just going to warn you, there's probably going to be a surprise or two coming, so stay tuned for that, because this is an auspicious moment. We are right now in a pre-takeoff, pre-taxi, pre-everything state. I've set up the airplane much in the manner it would be if we were just receiving it after the first flight of the day. So our safety checks have been done, but everything else is kind of hanging fire. So just show you where we are. There we are, and if you look over here, got the city of Toronto, and it's rendered really beautifully. This is Orbix OpenLC North America, the Canadian-Alaskan edition. The rest of it supposedly is coming very, very soon. Can't wait for that. And we've got our garden apartments there. We've got our boats and houseboats. We've got a science museum, a few radio aerials. That right down there is the quaint control tower. And this is an airport that is largely given over, although you don't see it right now, to Air Canada Express and to Porter Airlines, which has been trying to get the runway extended just a little bit. They're going to also have to do something about this Dash 8 they've got right here, because it seems to be sawing this building in half, or maybe the building is sawing it in half, but a little something they probably have to take care of before further revenue service. And in honor of Ben Carson, we've got a pyramid right here full of grain, just like in the Egyptian desert. So, with that said, let's pop into the cockpit. We are a little bit foggy in here. The music is playing. Let me just turn our blades on max, turn up our heat just a little bit, see if I can get some of this fog lifted. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to check our flight plan, which we have plugged in just a few moments ago. And it is going to take us out of Toronto City on the Bommet 5 departure, which is basically just a heading and then another heading and then a turn to our route, which is going to take us skirting over the northern edge of Lake Ontario, and then we're going to go to Miglo, and we're going to pick up the HABS 3 arrival into Montreal, and we're going to swing around and probably land on runway 26. There's not a lot of wind, but there's just enough wind maybe to favor the 26, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there. Let me just show you what our route is going to look like. It is going to, let me turn down the sound just a little bit. There we go. Make things a little bit more bearable. We are parked right here. There's the control tower. There's Toronto over here. We are going to push out nose right, and then we are going to taxi to taxiway Charlie, then Delta, and then runway 26. When we get there, we are going to have to be very careful to confirm that we are on the correct runway, because you see this is runway 26, this is runway 24. Runway 26 is almost 4,000 feet long. Runway 24 is only barely 3,000 feet long. And bad things have happened when flight crews have not confirmed what runway they are on. Anyway, so boom, we're going to do that. We're going to fly the Bommet departure right here. If you can turn ourselves counterclockwise here. So we're going to fly out this way, and we're going to make a left, and then we're going to loop around and pick up the rest of our route going out this way. When we get to the Montreal area, we're going to fly this arrival. It says HABS 2 here, but it's by now it's the HABS 3 arrival. We're going to pick it up all the way out here at Miglo, and we're just going to fly it in here, and we are going to dump ourselves off onto this approach, which will loop us around here to runway, I said 26, it should be runway 24, and I believe they're landing on 24 right, but that's let me show you what it's going to look like. Flip it counterclockwise now. Little Joseph Strauss playing in the background there for our passengers. And our passengers are mainly just airline VIPs and other assorted deadbeats deadheading their way back. But there's our departures. I have to find a good source of Canada aviation charts and approach plates that aren't all slapped into one giant glob. See if I could find our correct arrival here. Those are the 6s. There's 24 left. Okay, here's 24 right. So basically we are going to pick it up here, loop around here, come back here, like so. And we will park ourselves in front of the terminal right here. So just looking forward, it's an 11,000 foot strip, but we're going to try and make this high-speed turnoff here so we can come straight down into the terminal. I tend to get lost at this airport. I'm not sure why, but there you have it. Anyway, let's do our before start check. Nose wheel steering should be off. Main bus tie should be tied. APU as needed. Heats should be off. Lights should be off except for the position and anti-collision should be red. Heat as needed. Bleeds can go to normal. Engine start on. Cabin altitude should be set. That should be set at 500 above field, so there we go. Turn on our fasten seatbelt signs. And with that, we will close the door, call for push, and start up. Let's see what else we need to do. Gust lock is on, parking brake is on, power levers, condition levers should be at disc and fuel cutoff, and they are. I've already inputted our V-speeds. Our route is already in. I haven't finished setting up the console here, but I will momentarily. We're going to be cruising at 2,500. And I'll check our weather in a second as soon as we start. Alright, so in the Majestic version of the Mighty Dash, we get our start by pressing data, calling up services, requesting a push. Our push is going to be, we're going to start straight, and then we're going to go right.
We are ready for pushback.
We are ready now. Please release parking brake.
Okay, so the brake will come off.
Parking brakes released.
I'm going to go up here.
Push
Turn.
back now. You're clear to start the engine number 2.
Starting number 2. That comes up to start and feather. I'm going to monitor our push. I'm going to, as soon as we're clear of that jetway right there, I'm going to turn us right. As we start up 2. And that is our push. See how little space we've got? So number 2 is starting up.
Approximately 2 hours. Would you please fasten your seatbelts and refrain from smoking? If you want to use any electronic equipment,
Parking brakes set. Can you get clearance at number 1?
For takeoff and landing, these devices must be switched off, and the cellular phones may not be used during the entire flight. We wish you a pleasant stay on board.
Thank you. So we'll hit start again. We'll come down here again. Move that to start and feather. While we're at it, we'll look at our temperatures and pressures, and number 2 is nice and stable. Everything's where it needs to be. Everything is in the green. And in about a nanosecond, there we go. Oil pressure is starting to climb. And number 1 will be okay as well. So, let us very quickly
Have your attention to the international safety regulations. This aircraft has 6 emergency
turn our packs on and our bleeds to max and try and clear these windows a little bit. I'll also turn on the windshield heat and the pilot side window heat and all my pitot heats right there. And with any luck, that'll clear things up. Now I'm going to move both my prop levers to max, which will bring the generators online. And when they come online, our cautions will extinguish. I can now turn our APU bleed off, turn our gens off, and kill the APU. And heavens to Murgatroyd, we can see. Now, I'm enunciating yellow for the bleeds, and that's because I need to reduce them to min for takeoff. So we'll do that. Turn our anti-collision lights to white, turn our taxi lights on, turn our logo lights on. Kill our caution there, that's just because of the parking brake. We will make sure that our steering is on. It is. We will do a quick control surfaces check. And there's our rudder flapping around in the breeze. There we go. All right. We'll just set a little bit more nose down trim than that, and we're going to be taking off flaps 10. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put us in go-round mode. So I do that by pushing on this little button right here. Now, all this does in this airliner is change the flight director bar. It does not, for instance, like in a 737 or 777, command toga thrust or cut off the auto throttles or whichever one it does. I forget which, but all this does is watch what happens here. All this does is does this. Okay, now it's in wings level mode, but what I really want to do is I want to put it in LNAV mode to test that enunciates. That's our way of testing that we're on pink needles, just in case we're too stupid to see that this is pink and not blue. And we're going to actually take off in heading select mode. And let me briefly, before we do anything else, check our SID. So our first heading is going to be 262, which is runway heading, and then going to 201. So that is done. Quickly check our weather. I'm going to do that by tuning in ATIS on Active Sky Next, which is at 122.0. As long as you have a route plugged into Active Sky Next, it will give you the weather.
Charlie, Yankee, Tango, Zulu, airport information, Lima 2000, Zulu, weather, wind 280 at 11, gusting to 18, visibility 9er, sky condition, ceiling 3700, overcast, temperature 6, dew point -1, altimeter 3021, advise on initial contact that you have in...
Okay, 3021, so we'll set that. And we'll watch our altimeter right here climb up to field elevation, and that'll be our way of checking to make sure that everything is copacetic there. Whenever I do anything, I try to do it in a way that provides me with 1 or 2 cross-checks just in case I'm doing it wrong. And it's a way of catching my errors, and that is our field elevation. And I glance up here and I notice that that is set, but I don't have outcell set. So now that's set, so we don't bust through that. And then let me do the rest of our taxi checklist. So the main bus tie can come off, our heats are on, taxi lights are on. Bleeds are at min, temps are as necessary, anti-ice as necessary, not needed. Trim is set, flaps are set, 10, altimeter set. Autopilot is set. Heading select, yes. We can turn our pumps and auxes on. We'll notice that our standby hydraulic system pressurizes, and that's all good. The other thing we will do is we will activate our hydraulic, that's the wrong button, our standby isolation valve, and we're going to watch as this rises, number 3, and up it comes. I kill that caution. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to watch it fall when we turn this off, and we exercise the controls, and it does, and that's good too. So we're good to go there. That's good. Route's good. Heading is set. No, heading is not set. Heading should be, runway heading should be 262. That's why there are checklists. So runway heading set, 262. Parking brake is released. Gust lock will stay on until we take the runway. And so away we go. That click you hear is the power lever detente or detents going in and out of beta. Do a sporty little taxi out of here. Now, before I go any further, the exciting thing about this airport, and there are many exciting things about it, is that here at CYTZ, if you will notice, it says right here that discretionary oversteering is required. And I don't know about you, but when I hear the words discretionary oversteering, front office of an airplane, well, it just kind of gets to me. So we're going to do a little discretionary oversteering right there as we make the turn onto Charlie, then onto Delta, and then onto Charlie. Okay, we'll discretionarily oversteer. Look at that. That is so hot. All right. We see the sign is pointing us towards 26 and 8. That's one way to tell we're not about to take the wrong runway. But the risk comes when we make this next turn. because there are two runways that basically have the same point of origin, and then they go off in different directions by 20 degrees, and one of them is considerably shorter than the other. So we'll discretionarily oversteer here as well. So we can stay short of the hold short line. There we go. All right, put on the parking brake. Turn on the auto feather, turn off the gust lock. Turn on our landing lights, turn off our taxi lights. Check our landing elevation, that is good. Check our heats. Check that our bleeds and packs are in the right place. Passengers are seated. We will notify the crew with 2 chimes. And they'll assume it's the Avon lady. We'll make sure it's clear on the right. It's clear on the approach end. And we will discretionarily oversteer our asses onto the runway, because there's not a lot of runway to waste. We're going to look at those nice big letters, 26, and we're going to discover that they say 26. So that's good. See, there's 24 running off in the other direction there. That could get awkward. Just line ourselves up as efficiently as we can. And this is going to be an M-top takeoff just because I give myself a little bit more margin. So instead of going off at 90% torque, we'll go off at 100% torque. And again, we're going to be flying runway heading until we get to 660 feet, and then we're going to turn to 201. So, M-top is enunciating. Power is set. There we go. Cranking a little bit of right rudder trim. Keep us happy. Okay, here we go. Coming up on V1. Again, runway heading until 660 feet, then a left turn. Gear up. Okay, we're above 660. Then a left turn to 201. Spin our heading bug around. Start to bring up our flaps. Bring our props back to max climb. We go. And there we almost are. Alright, so we're on our heading. Let's pop ourselves into IAS mode. And now pop it into wings level mode and on with the autopilot. Let's pop up here and we'll go direct to DAVZ. So the way we do that, since it's already in, is we just go into nav mode and it will turn us onto direct to DAVZ. So there we go. I can turn off my auto feather and my pumps. Bring our bleeds to normal. And turn on our ice protection because we're just starting to hit some ice. So on the props go, on the boots go, and engine intake doors open up. That's to guard against damage from ice flaking off the wings and smacking into delicate parts of the engine is more or less the way I've heard it explained. And down there, through the clouds, is our airport. Was our airport. And you can see we've acquired the magenta line, and we'll be above this turbulence in just a minute or two. Alright, coming up on 10, we can kill our lights. Other thing I'll do is I'll check to make sure that we are pressurizing. And yes, the cabin is climbing, but not excessively, and the cabin altitude is at 2,000, and that's fine. And the differential is not too great, which it shouldn't be at this low altitude, so we're good there. Spin our heading bug around. Get us squared away. Take note that our heading is this and our track is that, and the reason why is because we're picking up a nice little shove from the left. Alright, looking next for flight level 180, where we will switch to standard altimeter. Pop outside and see what kind of ice we're getting here. Actually, the way I could do it, except for if I were a pencil neck geek, I could just crane my neck around like this. Take a look out here, out the window, and see that we're pretty good. Oh, there's a little ice, a little on and off, as the boots are doing their work. Okay, we're climbing nice and comfortably. Not too horrible for the passengers. Speaking of which, off can come the fasten seatbelt sign. Cabin temperatures are fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, for your own safety, we instruct you to keep your seatbelt fastened during the entire flight. Please observe that this flight is a non-smoking flight.
Alright, so we're turning next to Tessic. And we'll shortly be getting established in the cruise. And while we are turning to course, let me just show you what the rest of our route looks like. So the way you do that is you press the format button, and your map display turns into a kind of schematic diagram. And what you do is you start moving through your flight plan, and you can see, let me just take out the no link, what you'll see is you'll see a discontinuity here in a second. Well, because the scaling you can't. But let me see, did I take it out already? Yes, Bommet and then Miglo. So right at Bommet, which is on the edge of one scale, and then Miglo and Rito, which shoots off the other end of the scale. This is one of the quirks of the Dash's dashboard, as it were. It jumps these legs 3 steps at a time, so it's really a kind of imperfect display. Anyway, we just passed over 180, so we'll set standard altimeter and confirm and cross-check. Okay. Still getting ice. Just going to get rid of that. I'm going to hit our format button again, and we're back to map display. And while we're at it, let me just get rid of that discontinuity. That's normally there because the assumption is you'll get vectored at some point. this one we'll get rid of. So now our en route portion is connected to the Habs 1 arrival, but there's Habs, you see, but it is still disconnected from the actual approach because, again, the presumption is that ATC is going to vector you anyway. So at that point, what you would do is you would get into a heading mode, you would spin the bug around, you'd spin the altitude bug around, and you would basically just do what you're told, keeping an eye on the map and on your navigational displays to keep extra aware of where you are with respect to the approach in the airport. Okay, all of our temps and pressures are fine. We are still climbing nicely, but a bit slower than we were before. A little thinner air. Just trim out our rudder a little bit. Whenever you make power changes in the dash, you end up having to make rudder trim changes because these are enormous props and they're churning a colossal amount of swirling air over the wings and over all the control surfaces, and they're also generating a lot of torque. Although I'm not sure, I should check on our next startup, I'm not sure if they are opposite rotating propellers. So some of the torque may be canceled out one from the other, but certainly the vortex effect of all of that spinning air can't really be counteracted except with rudder trim, so not sure. Have to ask an expert. If anybody knows, chime in the comments whether the dash is left and right propellers rotate in opposite directions. Alright, just monitoring things. We're above the weather and we can turn off our ice protection. Off it comes. As to the matter of whether the engine intake doors are open or closed, different airlines have different SOPs, and some of them require that they be open all the time, regardless of whether ice protection is on. I'm not sure if Air Canada is one of them. Again, if anybody knows, throw it in the comments. Quickly checking that our cabin altitude is fine. It's at 7,000 feet. That's good. And everything looks about right. Bleeds are fine. You can see there's snow on the ground here in mid-November. Looks nice. What you see down there is courtesy of Orbix. That's 1,000 ago. Orbix is OpenLC, which uses land class data and OpenStreetMap data to basically plug in plausible farms and neighborhoods and lakes and parks and things like that. So, having been dinged at, we'll make sure that alt cell is illuminated, and it is. And as we approach, I'm going to move my condition levers to min, which will enunciate as MCR, and that will ease our transition into the level off. Keep people from flying upwards out of their seats with negative G's. And now that we have reached cruising altitude, the surprise, we have gotten a notification from our company that instead of flying to Montreal Trudeau, this dash on the 18th is going to get an upgrade from the standard version to the super duper version with a head-up display and a bunch of other neat features. So instead of going to CYUL, we are going to go to CYMX, which is Montreal Mirabel, which is where the Bombardier factory is. So we are going to change our plans right now while we're en route and go back there and land, and we will get all souped up. So this is a treat, and this is a surprise. If you're wondering what prompted it, the Majestic people who deal with this particular Mighty Dash are coming out with an upgrade, what they call their professional version, although, you know, it's hard not to consider ourselves professional right now, right? And it will have a heads-up display right here for instrument work, and it will have functioning circuit breakers and functioning failures and all sorts of other interesting stuff. So let us hustle ourselves to Mirabel. So the way we do that is we change our destination. Do that by, let's see, the simplest way to do that is by going into our arrivals in our flight plan. Go menu, arrival, and instead of CYUL, we'll do CYMX for Mirabel. So all this hunting around comes from me working all... Oh, wait a minute, I'm talking to the passengers, and I've got an English accent. Alright, now that the English me has finished sucking up to the VIPs, the reason why I am so spastic on this keyboard is I spend most of my day writing, and I write on, obviously, on a QWERTY keyboard, so I keep expecting a QWERTY keyboard, which I'm not going to get. So anyway, so there we go. CYMX, we'll hit enter there, and we will accept that, and I believe we're going to come in on runway 24. That would be preferred. Maybe runway 6. Let me see what's good. See what the weather is doing. Try runway 6 at the moment. That'll put us closest to the Bombardier plant. It'll be the shortest taxi. So highlight that, hit 1. And there is no star for Mirabel. It's kind of sad. And we'll do the ILS into runway 6. There we go. And let's see, what transition can we use? Let's take a look at our route as it stands right now. Let's see, it's offering us the airport itself, which we don't want, YUL, which we could take, which is right there, actually right here, or Lulvy, and I think Lulvy is off in the other direction. So let's take 3 YUL. There we go. Go back to our flight plan, and whenever changing something in the flight plan, it's not a bad idea to first of all clean it up and then do direct to. So we're heading to bomb it. We can get rid of CYUL, we don't need that. And we can get rid of that as well. So we will go right onto YUL, and that will take us directly onto our approach. Okay, 6 ZMR. This is our missed approach, which sends us back to YUL to hold. Okay, that's cool. And let me just look at our constraints real quick, because we're going to set up a descent soon. So we want to be at ZMR at or above 2900. So VNAV ZMR We'll accept that, and we'll accept that. That's going to be too steep an approach, I get the feeling, but let's see. Yes, that is too steep. So let's make that 1800. Probably be shallow. Ah, it's fine. Alright, and now our descent is set up. Now the other thing we'll do is we'll just make sure we're still going direct to our next waypoint, which is YUL, because I think we've crossed Bommet. Indeed we have. Okay, so we'll just scale this out a little bit. Take a quick look. See, there's our top of descent. There is YUL. We'll hit Format, and we'll scale back, zoom in, and we'll walk through our flight plan. So okay, that's YUL right there. And that's our left turn onto the approach. There's our intercept. Alrighty. That should do us just fine. The only thing we have to be wary of is if the wind is too excessive. We can land with a little bit of a tailwind. As a matter of fact, it will hardly matter. We're going to go down onto an 11,000 foot runway, and we really want to actually, to get to the Bombardier plant, we actually want to go almost to the end of it. So a long, smooth, greased-on landing is hardly the worst thing in the world. Let's just see where we are right now. We've past Bommet, which is right there, and now we are heading actually straight to the airport we were originally going to. So we're going to head right to this VOR, and then we're going to swing out this way. Actually, I'm going to come down. It's hard to see in this chart. We are going to swing around this way and go on runway 6. Make sure I don't exceed barber pole. I haven't. Gonna quickly check our approach again. 6 is set, and 6 is there. The plant is right there, I think. Here, let me show you on the map. Before I do that, let me quickly make sure we're not going too fast, and we're not. It'll start beeping if I get about more than 5 or 6 knots fast, but here we go. So we'll be landing on this runway, and as you can see, there is the factory. There is the old terminal. This is a fascinating story. This airport, in the late 60s, early 70s, it was conceived in the late 60s, and they purchased, the Canadian government did, or the provincial government, I'm not sure which, purchased all of this land, some 30 some odd thousand acres, enough land to put almost 2 Manhattan Islands on, because this was going to be the big international gateway to Canada. Right after the 1967 Expo, before the 76 Olympics, big time. It was going to be like Dulles, huge runways, high-speed turnoffs, room for the biggest jumbo jets, super-duper modern terminals with those mobile lounges that you got in that would drive you out to your plane. There is enough room here so that you can put 1 runway here, 1 runway here, and then another runway here, and then, if I'm not mistaken, 2 more here, and extend the terminals out from these 6 little forlorn jobbies all the way to here and here and here and here and here, almost ad infinitum. This is, just for perspective, was sitting on twice the amount of land that Dallas-Fort Worth Airport sits on. But what happened was pretty simple. Most people in Canada don't live in Montreal, and most of the commerce in Canada is done in Toronto, and most of the newer airliners that flew transatlantic had enough fuel to go from anywhere in Europe and almost anywhere in the Middle East straight to Toronto and not to Montreal. It's the equivalent of basically building a big airport in New York. It's a rough analogy. More like building Dulles Airport when, if you were flying into the United States, unless you had business to do specifically in Washington, you wouldn't fly to Dulles. You'd fly to New York for business there, or you'd fly to Chicago, especially for connections. And so, as appealing as Montreal is, and as densely populated as the whole of Quebec is, the commercial center and the railroad connection center and the agricultural exchange center and all the rest of that of Canada is back in Toronto. So what happened was, people didn't want to go and start using this airport way the heck out in the middle of nowhere outside of Montreal when they had what was called Dorval at the time, and it's now called Trudeau. And it was seen as, look at this, it's surrounded by the city and industrial areas, it's cramped, it's small, you can't expand. But just like LaGuardia in New York, it's convenient. And it is surrounded by population, and since most of the big international traffic was going straight to Toronto, this never grew to the size in terms of passengers that they worried that it would. They were worried that it would soar above 25 million, and so you'd have to build Mirabel. But it never came to pass, and Mirabel now is home to Bombardier, and it is also the designated cargo airport for Montreal, and that's not a bad use for it. So FedEx and DHL and UPS all fly into here. They fly lots of flights, and they don't disturb as many residents. But I'm sure I'm missing the intimate subtleties of the history of this, and I'm sure I'm getting it a little bit wrong. So if I have, to my Canadian viewers, especially to my Canadian viewers, if I have any who are in Quebec, apologies in advance for the oversimplification, but that's basically the story as I read it in a nutshell. And it kind of came to symbolize, in a lot of ways, the sort of, I guess, slow death of the kind of idealistic 60s, You had big urban revitalization projects like that, and big airport projects, and giant campuses full of concrete sprouting up all over North America and in South America too. And Brazil, the whole city of Brasilia was basically built on that basis. It was a new city. And Brasilia is interesting and unique, and it is the capital of Brazil, but the cultural and commercial heart of Brazil is Rio and Sao Paulo, respectively, and the big provincial capitals as well. So these sort of utopian ideas petered out a little bit. When we fly into Boston, we'll fly over their City Hall, which is an unbelievably hauntingly ugly pile of poured concrete that went up in the late 60s, and a whole lot of other things like that that were sort of disconnected from, the way ordinary cities worked and the way people liked to assemble and walk around and hang out and all the rest of that. So you have a lot of those sort of big white dinosaurs, white elephants, whatever you want to call them, hanging around all around North America. You know, there's the whole Olympic Village in Montreal, which I visited years ago, one January, which was epically cold, magnificently cold. And I don't know, it's just cool to see how cities have changed. And it's already epically cold up here. Let's go get the weather in Mirabel. Quickly check where our top of descent is, where we are. Okay, we still got a little ways to go. Pop into here. CYMX. Put that here, actually. X. CYTZ. Let me just generate a new route so that I have ATIS the whole way. Alright, so weather at our destination is... Alright, if we land on 6, we'll have a little bit of a quartering tailwind, but nothing we can't deal with. Pressure is 30.04, so we'll set that in our standby so we have that to refer to. The rest of the conditions are overcast. The wind is sort of shifting around and it's gusting too. Alright, we're going to do this just to live dangerously. Decent visibility and a 3,000 foot ceiling. Alright. Maybe we'll do like we did yesterday and do a circling approach. Check our fuel consumption and it is nice. Let's see, we've got quite a bit more fuel on the right than the left, and that's because our APU, I believe, draws from the left. So I'm going to use this switch here and I'm going to transfer some fuel. Balance this out just a little. See those numbers change? There we go. And now we're even Steven. And our trim is now trim. Alright, so I've got a total of 42, 43, 15. So let me just drop that in. Fuel 4215. Alright, that means that our performance figures now will make sense. And we've got a metric crap load of range. We will arrive over Mirabel with another 90 minutes of fuel. We can divert almost anywhere short of Newfoundland. Make sure everything else is okay. And get ready for our descent. Other thing I'm going to do is, just as a backup to a backup, I'm going to plug 2 VORs in. We'll plug in Montreal YUL, so that's 116.3. Because that's what we're going to be tracking to first. And that's also where we're going to be holding, so I want to have a needle pointing to it in case we have to go missed, because then we're going to be turning towards it. So 116.3, and there we go. And we're still a ways away. Oh, no. Okay, we got it. And we're pointing at it, and that's all right and good. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my nav 1 our localizer frequency, which is... Oh, I hate reading these. I'm used to reading FAA plates. There's the ATIS. Where's the ILS frequency? Approach. Oh, I don't like this. I don't like this. Crap, where is it? Make sure I'm not overspeeding. I'm not. Oh. It is right. No. 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 Localizer. There we go. Well, that's oddly enough, it's right where the localizer should be. 1113060. So, we're overspeeding a little bit. Pull that back. I'll pop up our ArcDo and we'll tune in 1163. That can't be 1163. That's our 1113. What is it they say in carpentry? Measure twice, cut once? Something like that. Okay, and our course, and the way we set that without actually popping into that mode is we hold down our format key. This turns into our pseudo blue needle. We tune our course to 060. Bim bam boom. And there we go. Let me see if there's a beacon as well. Yes, okay. And I'm going to tune my ADF to 272, that NDB, which will give us even more situational awareness because we'll know we're 5 miles DME when this thing flips. No, I'm sorry, that's 5 miles from here. So let's see, Hermes. Why should it say? No, I think that actually is 5. No, that can't be 5 miles. Anyway, Hermes is 272. And we're coming up on top of descent. We will switch this to VNAV, spin this to 2900. We will also hit outcell. And Hermes was 272, so we'll tune that up. Keeping an eye on our VNAV needle so that we can roll off power when it starts to nose us down. Okay, so that's the NDB that is just shy of the runway, and we're more or less pointing that way too. So we will hit our format key, hold it down, and boy howdy, there is the top of descent. Since we're coming up on top of descent, we'll seat the VIPs. And at the moment, that is all we need to do in terms of a flow up here. Altitude is set. Nav aids are set. Top of descent is enunciating, yes. It's not offering to arm or tune the approach yet, but that's fine. This is pointing almost straight at an NDB just short of the runway at Mirabel, and this is pointing You notice there's only a slight deviation, a few more degrees to the right to the Dorval or the Trudeau VOR. Come up here, check our VNAV. You'll see we're 2 miles to go to top of descent. And down we go. So I'm going to let us creep up a little fast. And it's not capturing. I'm going to hit VNAV again, and it captures. For some reason, it will, or I will do some combination of things that will pop it out of VNAV mode. Sometimes it has to do with it drifting above or below because of some quirk in the approach, and probably at other times it's because of a mistake I've made, and it will pop us into some sort of pitch mode, or if you haven't, or when you hit top of descent, it simply won't descend, because as far as it's concerned, there is no mode set yet. So I'm probably doing something wrong. So you notice we roll off the power, and look at that, we have to retrim. I mean, we could go down like that in a little bit of a slip, and I suppose the only reason I could think of that you might is if you wanted to just naturally induce a little bit of drag and slow down a little bit that way. But I'm not entirely certain that Dash 8s are certified or meant or permitted to do a lot of slipping. It certainly is not comfortable for the people in the back. Okay. Well, the wind seems to be coming more from the northeast the closer we get. So we might just decide to take a different approach as we get a little bit closer. Or, since it's a relatively empty airport at a relatively quiet time of day, there isn't a lot of freight coming out in the mid-afternoon, we might just take advantage of our 3,000-foot ceiling and reasonably good visibility and circle. Break off our instrument approach and then enter, say, turn outbound a little bit, turn south, and get into a left downwind. Or turn left and get into a right downwind, depending on what their preferred pattern is there. So we're looking next for 180, at which point we will switch to local altimeter. And actually what I will do is I will use Active Sky Next to give us an intermediate local altimeter. And that is 3012. So, and that's 3004. So let's set that to 3012. And that, of course, creeps us just a little bit above profile. But we've got speed and we've got distance to play with, so we're fine. Okay, we're at 3012. Check the ATIS for Mirabel. And that's at 122.025.
Charlie, Yankee, Mike, Whiskey, airport information, Whiskey 2047, Zulu, weather, wind 303 at 4, visible.
Wrong airport. It should be Charlie, Yankee, Mike, X-ray. I wonder why it's doing that. Anyway, okay, so there's Mirabel and 3006 and not a lot of wind. Okay, so the wind is dying down. That's as a memory aid. Looking next for 10,000, wherein we will slow down to 250 and turn on our lights and get our pumps and bleeds configured. You can use bleeds anywhere below 10,000. Check our VNAV and we will see that we are on profile. It's going to let us arm the approach, and since I've already tuned the approach, it will not offer a tune the approach, I don't think. Let's see, arm the approach. Yes, okay, so it's already tuned and it knows it. That's good. And we are 12 out. We're now 35 away from Dorval, at which point we're going to turn. We're going to make a pretty steep turn, and we want to be down oh, you know what? I totally forgot about this procedure. It includes a procedure turn, and ordinarily we would fly that manually, but let's see how the autopilot and the FMS does it. So it is going to intercept us going back outbound. We're going to do a procedure turn to reverse course. So we are going to turn 270 degrees, leaving us on an intercept back for the localizer. This is going to be cool. So about 45 in, fly straight outbound, and then around we go. Alright, who said computerized flying isn't fun? Look at that. What a desolate looking day. Let's go outside. Wow. Wow, that is awesome. That's just beautiful. Look at that. All right, coming up on 10. On profile, 1600 desired, 1600 flown, needle centered. Turn on our lights. Bleeds come to min. Approach has been briefed. All right, start rolling off some power before we get a speeding ticket. Okay, we're down at flight idle, and you see the power coming off precipitously. There's our approach. Okay. Alright, this could be kind of cool. Okay, we're below 250. My CYTZ throttles, and I say that not as an endorsement, but more as an epithet. My CYTZ throttles are noisy. The pots in them are dirty and noisy, and just to even out the power, the actual levers are offset by about an inch. Alright, we're hitting some icing, so there we go. Boom, boom. To say that they irk me severely would be quite the understatement. Now you can see here, that's our NDB off this way, which is lined up with the runway. That is our Montreal, Dorval, Trudeau VOR, and that's also our entry point for the approach. And we are coming through cloud and turbulence, and we are right exactly at our turbulence penetration speed, coincidentally. And there's the turbulence. See us gaining and losing airspeed there as we go through the little pockets of it. Check the ice on the wings. Alright, we're not bad. We're over a little chunk of the St. Lawrence Seaway right there. See the ice on the prop spinners and a little bit of ice on the vertical surfaces. In the words of Chico Marx, that's a no good. Alright, now ordinarily what I would do is, when we got to about here, I would manually switch into heading mode. I'd flip our needles over to blue needles so that we're picking up the localizer. I would manipulate the heading bug until we intercept the localizer going outbound, or I could probably hit this button here and go into the back course mode. And then when we get to the point where we're supposed to do our procedure turn, I would do it with the heading bug, spinning it around 270 degrees, and then I'd flip from back course to nav, and then I would flip from heading into nav hold for the autopilot, and that would intercept our localizer coming back. However, and that would be fun. However, I think what we're going to do this time is we're going to see how well it LNAVs and VNAVs our asses around, at least until it turns us onto our final approach course. Then we'll briefly pop into heading mode and we will flip over to blue needles and we'll fly the ILS. But until then, let's see how the electronic wizardry does it. Because we're heading back to the Bombardier factory, so we'd want to be able to tell them, hey, you guys are awesome, or let them know that something isn't working well. Alright, so we're over the suburbs of Montreal right now. Just before we do our turn, I'm going to set our V speeds for landing. Be flaps 15. Alright, those are set. Set a VAP as well. With the wind, make about 10 knots. And let's see how we get on, as the great Flight Sim 481 would say. Should be making our turn any second. The VNAV thing will probably go a little haywire, because it always does. We'll turn our pumps and our auxes on. We'll set ourselves up for a reduced noise landing. We'll let the speed come down to a better maneuvering speed for the kind of maneuvering we're going to have to do. And we just passed over the VOR because that just flipped. And you can see we're heading back towards the NDB, which is right about there. And that's our little extra bit of situational awareness. I'm going to make sure this doesn't accidentally pop us out of VNAV path mode. Keep my eye on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've just started our approach. We would kindly ask you to fasten
I'm also going to spin our heading bug around in case we have to take this ourselves. We got 1 notch of flaps in. And I'm just making sure we don't get above about 190. So I'm going to bring our power down to about 15. A little bit more, maybe 13. All right, we're 1,000 away. And now, if you notice, we are about to intercept here. I'll show you on our... Leave me alone. I'll show you on our Blue Needle preview what's happening. We're coming up on the back course, and this is going to come in, and we're going to turn that way, which is what we're doing right now. Look at that. We're on profile. I guess it would be embarrassing if the Dash 8 couldn't fly the approach into its home factory. So we will now spin our heading bug to the reciprocal of the runway heading. 240. There we go. And now, you see, our NDB is pointing back at the marker behind us. Now, we will come up in 1 second on the fun stuff. That is our procedure turn. We're going to turn right outbound 45 degrees. And I'm going to set that up right now in case I have to do this manually. And then we're going to fly outbound, I think, for a minute or a minute and a half. And then we're going to turn back inbound. Oh, no, wait a minute. It's a right-hand procedure turn. Yes, it's a right-hand procedure turn. Okay. So we're actually just going to make one single 270-degree turn. So I'm going to set our heading to there. Ah, but if I do, it will try to turn us to the left, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to turn it to about there, and then we'll pick it up from there if we have to. That is a cheap dash trick. Now, once we enter this turn, I will get ready to switch my nav modes and get ready to switch into heading mode. And when we do, by the time we get to that point, letting too much speed bleed off here, when we get to that point, I will spin the heading bug like so. Switch into heading mode, and then we will intercept the localizer. For the moment, I'll just leave it at about there to start our turn in the right direction if we have to. As we head back across the St. Lawrence. Gorgeous stuff. Almost, while I was blabbing, I almost Colgan 3047'd us. I let the speed decay and we got down to about 145 knots. And we want to be actually at about right about there. We were nowhere near stall speed, but I was running my mouth and I wasn't looking at the airspeed. I wasn't flying the airplane. Matter of fact, I built everything up so clever here with this, with our missed approach point, with everything all set, and the one thing I didn't do was the basic of aviation, which is airspeed. Ah, okay, so it is this kind of procedure turn. So we'll fly outbound here. And I'm going to wait till it finishes its turn. I'll briefly pop it into heading mode, and it'll fly straight along that same heading. We will switch over our nav source and do it that way. Look at this is a thing of beauty, folks. And down there is kind of a thing of beauty. Thank you, Orbix. Alright, do a quick GUMPS check. We'll assume we've just been cleared to land. Taxi lights on. Anti-ice not needed. As we start our procedure turn, right about now. And we're going to be coming back. I'm going to set runway heading right now, because that's where we're going. Which is 060. And as soon as we get established, I will switch us into heading select mode. Flip that switch over. These needles will turn blue. The NDB, the ADF needle will point right at the NDB. If we're all set up. And we will be almost bang on the localizer by dint of the Magnificent Dash's fine FMS. And as soon as we turn also, I'll go gear down. So a bunch of things will happen. And we're right at our flaps extension speed, so if I want to, I can put all of them in right now. But until I bring the gear down, it will bitch at me.
2500.
That's above the ground. Okay. Gear down. Get us turned here. Heading select. Nav source switch. Blue needles. Nav mode. It is going to acquire the localizer. There it is. It has acquired the localizer. We're below glide slope, which is fine. We're holding 2900, which we need to hold until ab-knee. Our ADF is pointing at the beacon. And as you can see, we are cocked off about 7 degrees to the left because we're getting a raw 22 knot crosswind. So we're fine landing where we're landing, but it's going to be fun. Alright, so 4.4 to Abney, which point we will put in the rest of our flaps and slow to our final approach speed. Matter of fact, let's start to get configured now. Watch our nose come down. We'll pitch down with the flaps. One more. I'll come off the power now, bring us to our approach power. There we go. And I'm actually going to maintain a little bit higher than that notch right there because of the wind. This could be a little bit funky because of the way my throttles are screwy right now. Okay, so we're making our way slowly onto the localizer. There is our glide slope coming in. So I'm going to switch to approach mode in 1 second. As soon as it gets about another half a dot away. Now, as soon as we intercept the glide slope, I'm going to have to roll off the power a bit, but not as much as I would. Okay, there we go. And this could get very interesting because there is the runway and that's where we're pointing. And that's a healthy wind. That is a healthy crab. I'm just going to spin this up to our missed approach altitude. There we go. A little fast. Come off the power a bit. Well, this is quite the blowjob here. And it is actually setting us up a little bit to the left, so I'm just going to take this. Because I think, appearances to the contrary, it has a little bit of a problem with the database. The nav8 in the database is probably just a little bit scroogey. There we go. Bring in a little power. Oh, we're getting a bit of a drift. Okay, we just crossed our beacon, our NDB. You saw that needle flip. Don't want to let the speed decay too much more than that.
1,000.
Stable. Got a little bit of a crab here. Just trying to experiment with it. Trimming like a madman. I'm also cheating with my power levers a little bit. I'm using just a little bit of differential power. Alright, there we go. Turn off our flight director. Take a look at the end of the runway. That's a bit much.
Plus 100.
Now we're deliberately landing long because of where we're going to be taxiing to, so that's not really a concern.
Minimums. Minimums. $100. $50. 40, 30,
And the wind dies.
20, 10.
There we go. And we'll take the next turnoff, which should be exactly where we want to be. Next high speed. There we go. That one right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, to our final destination. Please remain seated with the seatbelts securely fastened until the aircraft has reached its working position and the seatbelt sign has been switched on. Please continue to observe the non-smoking sign.
And welcome to beautiful, desolate Mirabel.
It was a pleasure having you as our guests, and we look forward to welcoming you aboard our aircraft again. Thank you and goodbye.
Now, as you might have guessed, for a almost abandoned airport, this hasn't been very well modeled in the sim. So, as you can see, as we just put on the brakes here, it is even more desolate than the real thing. There ain't no factory, which should be right all around here. So, we will just call it a day right where we are. And I think the next time we go flying, it is going to be in a brand new dash. At least I hope it is. In any case, let me know what you thought, and do the normal like, don't like, comment, subscribe thing. Fun flight, and enjoyed surprising myself. Hope you enjoyed being surprised, and we'll see you again real soon.